One of the larger issues I've come across having to solve regarding ComfyUI workflows and required dependencies and tools that the custom nodes, custom workflows introduce is InsightFace requirement. There are a lot of people on the web who have problems installing InsightFace properly, and this is reminding me, why was I using Windows one day? Why was I using older versions of Python and worrying about being able to explicitly set my Python version using Conda virtual environments, as we cover in my channel on other videos, for certain workflows such as IPadapters, which has a FaceID model that requires InsightFace. There's also the tool photomaker v2 and the ComfyUI photomaker plus workflow does work, and I have all of this working on my Windows install on another user. I have gone through, made a new install for making these videos with you that is clean. That is not set up. I am on Linux right now. I want this to work on Linux. So we're going to find out what it takes to make InsightFace run on whatever operating system we can make it run on, because we're going to first try Linux. After that, if we can't make this work on Linux by installing Onx runtime, the proper InsightFace version, people are having issues with this. And I already solved this issue in the past. And there are Python wheels provided by this repository by Gouriff, Gourieff. Inside of this repository for assets, there is the InsightFace directory, and there are wheel files that will help you install for Windows. But can we install InsightFace using pip in a fresh environment on Linux and avoid having to use these wheel files and transfer back to Windows and use Windows just for this one type of workflow, where if you want to run photomaker, or you want to run the IP adapter workflows that require InsightFace, I have learned a few things about this workflow so far, having already gotten it running on my other install. One thing is that we're going to want CUDA Toolkit 11.8, and we are going to want to use PyTorch for CUDA Toolkit 11.8, and we are going to use 3.10 Python version. These are not the latest versions at all, but it seems like that's okay. The tools we're trying to use in the workflow regarding InsightFace being a component of that workflow, it seems to be that we need older versions, and that the code was written for the older versions. So I am installing right now CUDA 11.8 using the instructions you find on the NVIDIA developer site, finding Ubuntu, the deb local file, and follow these instructions. Once CUDA is installed on the base, we are going to want a new Conda environment. So what we want to do, I haven't actually finished installing this, but what we want to do is make a new Conda environment with Python 3.10 and then git clone the repository for Comfy again, and we're going to have a fresh install for Comfy using the new CUDA toolkit version, the new Python version for the environment, and this provides the compatibility I have found we need for this workflow. Having CUDA 11.8 successfully installed, we hope, let's make our new Conda environment using the command on our already installed mini Conda. The command is conda create-n. The name you want to use for the environment, I am using ComfyUI-old, and I'm going to have a directory named that. It doesn't have to have the same name, but for organization, it's good to have the same name so you don't forget your environment names, where we're going to have the Comfy folder cloned to the ComfyUI old directory. The full command we're going to use is conda create-n ComfyUI old, and then we want to explicitly define the Python version as 3.10, and it's creating our environment. And we will just straight away want to activate the environment. From here, we want to clone the ComfyUI repository using git clone, and then the link from the repository for ComfyUI. So we need to get ComfyUI running, which requires us to use this command for torch, but this isn't the right command because we're going to use CUDA 11.8. So I go to the PyTorch site for the Start Locally page, and this lets you select your setup, your package management of pip we're going to use. Even though it's a Conda environment, the Conda aspect is so that we can define the Python version explicitly. We actually use pip for the package management usually. So you want stable Linux pip. If you have issues, we could also try the nightly, but we'll start with stable Linux pip Python language version. And the most important part, the point, is to get this command with CUDA 11.8 version. It changes this repository URL in the command it generates for us right here. So we use this command rather than the one on the Comfy Git page, because I want to try using the older CUDA and the older Python to have this workflow work for primarily the photomaker workflow. I ran into issues with that was already set up, so the IPadapter FaceID workflows were easier to get going. This will take a moment to download. We have installed the Torch set of packages using the command for CUDA 11.8. Next, we need to install the requirements.txt for ComfyUI using pip within our new conda environment. Ensure that it is activated and use pip install -r requirements.txt. This may not work perfectly. We might have to run away and go to Windows to go back to running this workflow. I like to run the photomaker workflow because I find I can get way more control over the face region and have way better faces that are more detailed and everything that you want in your artwork. You don't want a generic, undefined, blurry face if you can improve that by running this technology. So let's continue with installing Comfy and getting that to run with the new environment we are making specifically to run this workflow before we test and see if we will have to run to Windows in order to install the Windows wheel files that are provided for the version necessary, the 0.7.3 version, I believe, of InsightFace is provided as a solution. I've had it working on Windows. Run Comfy with python-m main, and we'll hit a snag and have to maybe run around and fix it. my goal today, as an example, is this ComfyUI photomaker plus workflow, and it is from Shimizu user on Git. If you find the page for this workflow in order to get the example workflows, which I recommend gathering those straight away. This is why we installed the ComfyUI manager. We can open the workflow and it will attempt to load most of the custom nodes we need automatically, and we can install them using the manager. But first, the installation instructions are indicating we need InsightFace, which this video is focusing on. I have had a lot of issues with this process. You can see anywhere you look, people are trying to solve InsightFace installation, and we are finding out if we can make it run on Linux. Using the information I learned making it run on Windows, I learned we needed a new environment with different Python, different CUDA, and we need Onx runtime next before InsightFace. And I have successfully used this command for CUDA 11.8. It also gives the basic command for CUDA 12 and others, or CPU, etc. This is for the GPU CUDA 11.8 to correspond with our environment. So you want to follow those, and we can now install InsightFace. InsightFace has a version of 0.7.3 offered on various community sites, like this one that is linked to in solutions from Gurif on GitHub, with assets for InsightFace for these Windows wheels. I want to install this same version of InsightFace for our setup today in our environment today. We will try pip in our terminal command line. We will try pip install InsightFace, and we have to get the syntax here for the version correct. For 0.7.3. Let's see if it runs. Okay. It's supposedly installing our version. That we've defined, 0.7.3 version of InsightFace as a prerequisite for the FaceID IP adapter workflows and nodes related to that, and the photomaker. We have installed Onx runtime GPU. We have installed InsightFace. I wonder how much further we need to go before this will show as either working or not. What we do need to do is install various custom nodes. For instance, the photomaker plus nodes. And I'm just going to go through, install these custom nodes, and reinstall or reboot the ComfyUI server. We hit an issue installing the ComfyUI Photomaker Plus custom node pack using the manager without following this step. You'll see in the terminal log when you go to reboot Comfy after attempting to install the Photomaker Plus custom node, there are issues with glibc regarding the InsightFace portion of this. That is, as I am making this video, as you can see, there are issues, and I have found the solution for this glibc related and libstdc++.so.6 file related issue that you'll see referenced in the error. And I found the solution, which was to install in the conda environment this command, conda install -c conda -forge gcc equals 12.1.0. It's found on this page for TensorFlow on ARM on GitHub. And this command is how I fixed the glibc error just now. So once I installed that within the conda environment using the command from that page, the Photomaker nodes loaded up. So all this is working, and we can see InsightFace is required by the Photomaker Encode Plus node. There is a Photomaker InsightFace loader, and we have hopefully installed InsightFace. On this loader, we'll select CUDA. And this video isn't about the Photomaker workflow in detail. It's just an example of a workflow requiring InsightFace. And I think we might have it all closer to running than the last time I tried this on Linux. I didn't get this far the last time I tried this on Linux. This looks like it might even run. It will take images we give it of faces, and it will import or output images, new images with that face on the person. And you can integrate this workflow with other technologies like control nets and build something just very, very powerful using these technologies of Photomaker and control net integrated, which is another issue, and I'll let you guys figure that out because it's so powerful that I am afraid to release the workflows for that. You will want to have the photomaker-v2.bin model file for Photomaker from Hugging Face in the ComfyUI models Photomaker directory. We will also need to have a SDXL checkpoint. I am using my favorite merge model. Let's take a look at this workflow. What else do we need to modify on this so it runs? The VAE here we can see is being loaded when I want to use the baked VAE on this just to start. Otherwise, we have to search for the VAE file. And I know this has a good baked VAE. And I am providing it just with 2 random images I already generated. Let's see if this will run as is and InsightFace is working or not. It might take a minute to run. It's loading InsightFace right now, so we'll find out if it throws an error or is InsightFace running. It has gone through the node. It is using photomaker encoder. It is now sampling using this photomaker v2 workflow. And if this workflow will run, InsightFace must have been installed. And there we go. We have a working photomaker workflow using InsightFace on Linux. I was using Windows for this workflow, and I am glad today, together, we have gotten this workflow to operate.